Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. I'm excited to have you with us today. Hey, I want to tell you something very quickly that Racer X is doing that's pretty exciting, pretty special, and I was fired up to be able to share the details with you. Right now, if you go to racerxonline.com/Moto Marketing, that's my link. Use that one, not the others. You can subscribe to the magazine, and you're entered in for a chance to win your very own e-bike, the Turbo Levo. It's a specialized Turbo Levo. They're sick. A lot of you know that I started and run an e-bike team. We compete in the GNCC series. They have an e-bike class. We all run specialized Levos. I have 3 different specialized e-bikes myself. The Levo is hands down my favorite. And look, it's not a cheap bike, but all you got to do is subscribe to the magazine and you could potentially win one for yourself. So again, go to racerxonline.com/Moto Marketing. Hey, today's guest is Jerry Slowik. He's actually from Impakt, which is our latest supporter of the show. And we talked to Jerry about the company, about the marketing decisions that they've made, that they're making now, and a little bit of a different episode from the standpoint of we talk about his decision of why they're promoting what they're promoting, not only with us, but with the other marketing that they're doing. So I'm excited for you to hear this because it'll give you a little bit of insight, a little peek behind the curtain of why this company is promoting what they're promoting in their advertisements with Racer X and other areas that they're advertising as well. So a little bit about MX Tech. They manufacture professional aftermarket suspension for riders who want excellent comfort and control. Their quality engineering is based on a lifetime of specializing in the dirt bike suspension and have developed the Lucky Fork, which features dual springs, dual cartridges, huck valves, and is ultra lightweight. MX Tech utilizes the latest in technology and coatings to deliver maximum performance while still remaining the lightest shock available. So give this show a listen, and then after you're done, head over to mx-tech.com for more information, and be sure to let Jerry and the guys over there know that you heard about them on the Moto Marketing Podcast. And again, don't forget, go win an e-bike. Subscribe to racerxonline.com/Moto Marketing. All right, that's enough. Time for me to shut up. Let's dive into the show with Jerry Slowik from MX Tech.
Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by Racer X, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by Racer X, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by Racer X.
All right, as promised, we've got Jerry Slowik with MX Tech on the line with us today. Somebody that you've heard myself and Weege and several of the Racer X podcast network properties talking about his brand MX Tech, and I wanted to bring him on today to have him tell us a little bit about the company, and then talk about expanding the company's growth and the brand awareness. And before we hit record, Jerry, you had said you have a little bit of a background in advertising, so definitely excited to talk about that. So welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Well, let's start there. You had mentioned that you have a background in advertising. This is the first time you and I have had the opportunity to speak, so I'm genuinely learning about you and your background as well. So tell us a little bit about your background and how it came to be where you're at today in Moto.
Sure. At some point, I went to college, did kind of a traditional art graphic design program, and out of that, I went into Chicago marketing, which could be promotions, advertising, different things like that. And then did that for quite a few years, and eventually I got into teaching as well. One of the things that as a kind of an art-related person or marketing type person, it's almost like this is just what you do as part of every day. And over the years, you begin to just accumulate a resume of different things, So there's a whole list of different things that I probably could say I've done at some point.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did that kind of, did you grow up a Moto fan? Like, how did it go from, the art and the education background to where you're at today?
Yeah, so I think just as a young kid, I grew up in Chicago, and my dad was a pretty big guy, and he drove the big Harley Davidson and stuff like that, and gave us rides on it. He bought my older brother a little Honda 50, but again, it was all concrete alleys and things like that. And but for me, it kind of sparked the interest, right? So you kind of start dreaming about this idea of dirt bikes as a kid. But honestly, I wasn't able to buy my first dirt bike until I graduated college. So that's the first time I did ride a few bikes here and there, but never at a track or anything like that. Once I got once I bought a dirt bike, we started doing trail riding, a lot of sand riding, stuff like that. It's just kind of, I've always stayed in it since then.
Yeah, yeah. So what led you ultimately to MX Tech and the suspension world?
So it's kind of interesting, but Jeremy Wilkie started MX Tech suspension in the early 90s. And so he was maybe what you might call one of the early moto kids, right? They would go racing and stuff like that on the weekends with his family, and he had a desire to stay in the industry, and so suspension ended up being that thing, right, that he was going to excel at. I met him in high school, so we met in high school, and so we kind of knew each other a little bit. Didn't really know about each other riding at that point. It wasn't until just a few years later when we realized that we both had that in common. So maybe to elaborate on that a little bit, in the early days of, say, a young college guy like Jeremy starting out a business, you started out in your parents' garage or whatever, like a lot of suspension shops do, and you do a lot of box truck stuff at the race, trackside support at races, right? Back in the early 90s, people would need seal changes and all kinds of stuff. And so that was kind of the basic business plan at that point, was to do that. And so on occasion I would join Jeremy, and we'd literally sleep in the back of the box on a, suspension oiled floor. It was really, the kind of thing you do when you're young.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like everybody has that unique rags to riches story that works in this industry, as far as getting their feet wet, and it's definitely not it's never a glamorous start. It's when people, young high school or college kids, approach me as far as how did you get your start. My path is unique because I created my own business and worked my way into building relationships. But most stories don't start like that. I mean, it's very much look at Steve Mathis. He was a mechanic and just kind of day in and day out, sleeping on the floor of box fans or whatever it was for years. And that sounds like, a similar story with you guys and getting together and getting this thing started. I'm curious there, as far as, MX Tech and what you guys are focusing on in a 2020, 2021 world, and expanding the growth of the company and just the brand recognition. The suspension world seems to be a very competitive, very crowded market. There's a lot of companies doing it. There are some that are bigger than others, and you guys are doing a really good job as far as getting your name out there and pushing your name to the front of the market as far as leaders and just brand recognition as well. I'm sure the technology is second to none, but really the brand awareness is where it starts. If people don't know that your technology is second to none, the technology is only as good as the person that knows about it. So what are some of the things you guys are doing and you're focused on right now now, and we can talk a little bit about your partnership with Racer X and the advertising there. What are you guys doing to make sure that as many riders as possible know about MX Tech?
Sure. Well, I think when you're an aftermarket performance company, you have to realize that results matter and that you have to be able to put together, a package that works for a rider or a racer. And also you have to realize that, maybe you can't please everybody in every situation. But we certainly try to do that. Sorry, I got some text coming through.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So I'll tell you what, a big change for us occurred just a few years ago. A lot of what we did at the suspension company was to try to optimize current factory setups. Things we might do that were very popular is we would make a two-way compression adjuster that had better functionality than, say, what's stock from the factory came. We could do that for, say, Kayaba applications or Showa applications and things like that. But again, just a few years ago, we finally decided, hey, instead of trying to solve the problems of the stock solutions, why don't we change the direction and start to look at what does it look like? If we're going to dream up a suspension package, if we're going to do this, what does that look like? What are we going to do? And so that kind of set us out on the venture of, creating and designing and creating our own shock, a national shock, that effectively is kind of like, for all intents and purposes, the industry uses the word works a lot. And it's like a works great shock, without question, It really looks at all the different things from an aftermarket viewpoint and says, what's the best setup or what's the best components and engineering that we can put into the shock to create, the absolute best system that we think we can offer.
And what are some of the ways that you guys have communicated that the research and development that went into that product, the technology in that product, how well it works? Is there anything that you guys have kind of leaned toward over the time of its existence to explain, hey, this is who we are. This is what you need to know about this product. Is it social? Is it print? Is it digital? Is it podcast? Like what are some of the things you've done, and what are you doing now to bring light to that product?
I think sometimes when I think back to the early days, a lot of times it was, a lot of guerrilla grade marketing, which might be like, stickers and T-shirts and, whatever you could put out there, right? And today,
Okay. All right, we're good. So I'm sorry, pick up at, you're talking about what you guys are doing with magazine advertising as well.
Yeah, so, we've consistently done an MXA ad, and then recently started to do something with Racer X as well. And we've done a couple things here and there in other places. Print advertising is obviously expensive, but we feel like, as much as we are, wanting to make a living like anybody in the sport, the reality is we're also trying to support the sport and be engaged in it. And I think print advertising achieves objectives as well. It's just another way to put your product out there.
Yeah, and I think in putting it in areas that people are really paying attention to and understanding what you're going to get from print advertising versus maybe, and we'll use Racer X obviously as an example, your expectation of what you get from Racer X, the magazine print versus their podcast network versus their website. Sometimes they're different things. As far as brand recognition and brand awareness, Racer X print is still second to none. I mean, it's the most iconic motocross magazine and one of the only ones that is still surviving today. So what you're going to get from that to maybe if you run Google ads is going to be very different. Google ads might not be the best place for brand recognition and awareness versus what Racer X magazine print can bring to the table. What's kind of your take and your look on goals and expectations from your partnership with the podcast network of Racer X versus maybe the print advertising? Do you guys look at it and go about it in different ways?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you want to have a presence everywhere. A lot of times, and again, we're on a smaller budget, but you try to repeat the story.
Right.
So if we can be consistent, like right now, we're talking about our national shock a lot, and so it makes sense to kind of use that information. But then again, another thing we're doing is brand awareness. We just want people to know that, hey, we're an aftermarket suspension company. We have some interesting things to offer that you might not find in other places.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
So that's. Mm-hmm.
What's your social media presence look like? Is it something that you guys, put some time and effort into? What content you're putting out on platforms like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube?
Yeah. So one of the things that I always say is you want to be consistent, right? So if you're going to pick up another social media platform, right, you want to make sure that it works for you, that you can update it on a regular basis, right? On the website, a lot of times we have blogs. We have blogs too that it's very hard to update that information on a regular basis, right? But social media, it's a little bit easier perhaps, but also you have to do it. You want to keep the content interesting and also relevant, right? We're not looking to waste people's time with just more hard sell advertising and things like that. We genuinely want people to know what is the next tech doing and how is it engaged in sports.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I want to do something a little bit unique that, and you said you've listened to the show, and our other listeners probably haven't heard us dive into like the marketing nitty gritty on other shows like I want to specifically with this. So you crafted a specific ad read for folks like myself and Jason Wygant to read on podcasts to bring awareness to certain products. And one of the things that we showcase in your information is the development of the Lucky Fork. Talk to me about that, and why did you guys make the decision to talk about the Lucky Fork specifically as opposed to maybe the National Shock or one of your other products that you guys developed specifically in-house? What was the thought process behind developing, hey, this is what we're going to have RacerX push and promote for us?
Sure. So the Lucky Fork, I think, so obviously I still ride today. And I'm 48. I still try to push the envelope a little bit,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Groove and go. Yeah, right. And the reality is, there's a lot of guys like you that are doing this, right? There's a lot of people that are out there, and they want to have the best experience when they go out there, and I've been, riding long enough that I've experienced a lot of, shortcomings from, say, bike setup and suspension and things like that. So now we're at a place where it's really enjoyable to ride. Having said all that, I think a lot of the American industry is really tied up in looking at the forks, the front setup of the bike, whereas perhaps like when you're in Europe, a lot of times it's about the shock. I'll never forget a few years back, I was in Denmark and we were riding at a local, like a farm track, and I couldn't believe the action on the shock where it was almost impossible to ride on, like using the forks of the bike. You really had to get on that rear wheel. And so I kind of realized how important that was. But anyways, to talk about the forks, the Lucky system is basically a full setup drop-in solution to existing, fork tubes and stuff to optimize, what you're getting, right? So we're looking at less friction, we're looking at lighter weight, we're looking at better adjusters, just fully optimizing the system.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you might even do some of the more exotic upgrades like DLC and Kashima, where somebody might want to have that as well. Usually where it needs, right, to avoid high friction surfaces and things like that, and durability. Yeah. Give you an idea, so R&D is a big part of our company, right? We go out and ride a lot. We have a lot of test riders. We get feedback from not just level riders, but also amateurs and vet riders and things like that to give us a well-rounded body of feedback. The Lucky Carbon's our latest version of Lucky, and so it really is more catered to people who are kind of like A and B level riders, people who are really pushing the boundaries, okay?
Sure.
And one of the early versions of the Lucky Carbon that actually had carbon tubes inside the cartridge. Okay, we had some designed material and it really worked well. The problem was to have the carbon durable enough, they had to have a thicker sidewall, and that thicker sidewall ultimately made that tube heavier than a basic aluminum tube, right? And so part of engineering is to not only increase performance, but also to save weight and to reduce things that don't need to be there. And so that's an example where we, as much as I love looking at those carbon tubes, the reality was it weighed heavier and it didn't do anything more for the product, but we took it back out.
So R&D, obviously, like you had said, is a big part of your all's business, and really has to be with the the aftermarket performance products that you guys develop. I mean, I feel like if R&D is not there, everything immediately starts to go downhill. I think when people reach out and ask me ideas, and I had a conversation with a podcast listener yesterday about ideas of, hey, what type of content could I create? And I always tell people, show your process, whether it's a riding school or suspension technology like you guys develop, showing that process of what goes into developing what I'm purchasing is not only intriguing for moto enthusiasts like myself, but also sells the product without you really even having to do anything. Is that something that you guys have considered doing more in your marketing content, whether it be just raw, organic, quick and dirty social media content that you're videoing what that R&D looks like and putting it on Instagram? Have you guys considered doing that, or is that something you currently do as of right now?
Yeah, we do it from time to time, and I think the reality is, we're when we're in, like right now, we're in busy season, right?
Sure.
We're flying off the hand, and it becomes really difficult
the time
for me to step into the shop.
Absolutely.
Everybody always likes to think that I'll show up to the shop on a Thursday afternoon, hey, can I get an hour out of your time?
Right.
To do a pod, to do something like that. But so just trying to be respectful of everybody's time management, what needs to get out the door, still realizing the customer is important. One of the things we say in-house at the shop is, imagine you're the customer, right? And we all know that once you send your suspension in, you're thinking, hey, I'm going to ride next week. And we try to give accurate timelines and feedback to people, and again, we're still trying to push the things that the business needs to do, like R&D, and we need to get out there and test. But yeah, whatever stuff we can service and ship back out, for a rider for the weekend, we try to get that done.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the last questions I wanted to ask you, and I know you're busy, and you were kind enough to kind of shoo away your family while we record this so that you could have some silence. I appreciate you doing that for us, so I'll let you go. But I wanted to ask, as far as how you utilize rider sponsorships, endorsements, influencers. Is that something that you guys do much of right now? Obviously, lots of riders utilize your product. How do you utilize their content? Do you have sponsorships with riders to where they feed you content? Is it something to where paying customers that tag you and post, you repurpose that? What does that look like for you guys?
So, we do a decent amount of sponsorships. Obviously, can't sponsor everybody. And, so we really, when somebody writes us a letter of sponsorship, I mean, that could take a lot of time out of my day just to try to, analyze who they are and what they're doing and if that fits what we're trying to do as well. And so that's part of it. Another part of it, though, we try to also, you try to be relevant in your different applications of riding, so whether it be supercross, motocross, or some sort of GNC enduro type thing. We try to have presence in all of those different areas of riding. Currently, one of our big things, I just did a post for Logan Carnell and Team PRMX, but Logan was able to take his 250, which has Next-Tech suspension on it. He's able to race the 450 race last weekend and give it to the main. So that was really exciting, And so for me, that's something worth to put a little post together and just let our audience know. I know Logan's, audience knows that, but we want our audience to know that. We want to share that information,
Yeah.
And that's a nice little milestone. So yeah, trying to support more riders is always something that we're looking to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's you guys are, what I've realized for even such a small company, from the standpoint of you guys run lean, there's not tons of you working there. So all of you, I'm sure, have different hats that you wear, but you still find a way to, from a marketing perspective, which is what we try to focus on the show, you still are able to cover the bases as far as making sure that people understand your technology, people know the riders that are utilizing it. You're getting the message out there, and you are a brand that understands how different marketing platforms work. We'd mentioned it earlier in this episode, how RacerX print works is different than YouTube ads. How YouTube ads work are very different than, Pulp MX or The Weed Show doing a sponsor read. Everything works differently, but you had said it's important to be in as many places as you possibly can. And with this small sport, it's much easier to do that in moto than it is, in healthcare or in for a legal firm. We have a very captive audience, and if you play your cards right, it's really doable to be omnipresent at a budget that can fit a lot of different companies. But then you guys are also doing organic social media. I mean, I'm looking at your Instagram right now and have for the past couple of weeks. You guys are showing riders that use your product. You're showing the product itself, explaining the technology that goes into it, showcasing riders that make the main, things like that. So it's encouraging to see, a brand like MX Tech, having somebody like yourself that understands the marketing side of it. So, it's been awesome to learn more about it.
Yeah, and I would probably add to that, so we've got some basic ads on the RacerX website, and we created a landing page on our website for that as well. And it's really interesting because when you're talking digital, you can track it a little bit more if you have somebody looking at the information versus print. And again, that's not to discount print in any way. You have to believe that it works, right? But from the web front, our landing page is probably, the RacerX landing page is our fourth top visited site right now. So I think that's pretty interesting. And we have an average duration for that particular page of 2 minutes and 11 seconds. So that's a good metric as well. So we're looking at that stuff as well, and realizing that, of course, I would say this anyway, but marketing and advertising certainly is a good investment in your own company. It's as important as investing in, proper tools to do the suspension or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so for somebody that might not have visited your social yet, Jerry, where are the good places for us to find you on Instagram and Facebook and the internet?
Yeah, so MX Tech Suspension, both on Instagram and Facebook as well. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, man, I appreciate you joining us. It's been a pleasure to learn more about you and obviously the company, and we appreciate you guys working with us on the podcast, and look forward to talking to you again soon and hopefully seeing you at some of the races.
Sounds like a plan. We do definitely get to a few races throughout the year. We were at the last Arizona Supercross. I think was the last one I made. So.
Awesome.
And of course, we were at Hangtown last year, and we're at this year.
Yeah, that's a bummer, but I am excited that as of right now, early June, it looks like we are going to be able to get the Nationals in, so that's positive news. So hopefully we'll see you guys out there, and for everybody listening, be sure to check out MX Tech on all the social platforms as well as on their website.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impakt Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpact.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.